Hello, my name is David Ferguson.
And I'm Sean Patterson, and we are the directors of Rewired Consulting.
We would like to welcome you to the Rewired Consulting Podcast, featuring guests from across the IT industry.
We will be talking to technology leaders from all over New Zealand, providing unique insight and good chat with the people on the front line of innovation and transformation.
This series will give you a great opportunity to hear the stories of the people involved and create the strategy and vision for some of New Zealand's most interesting businesses.
This episode is powered by smartspace.ai, the secure, scalable enterprise AI platform that transforms your AI capabilities without compromising security or control. Generic AI tools expose your data to unnecessary risk. Smartspace.ai deploys securely within your own Azure environment in an hour, accelerating AI adoption. Smartspace.ai simplifies enterprise AI solutions, cutting implementation costs by up to 90%, starting from $400 a month and deploy in minutes. Ready to lead your organization's AI transformation with confidence? Visit smartspace.ai/rewired for a special offer for Rewired Consulting Podcast listeners. Smartspace.ai, secure, scalable AI that grows with your ambition.
Hello, and welcome back to the Rewired Consulting Podcast. I'm David Ferguson, and today we're joined by Anna Cupples. Anna has had a great career in technology and is currently the head of engineering at TradeMe, one of New Zealand's most iconic businesses. In today's episode, we're going to explore Anna's beginnings and how she found her way into engineering, the incredible opportunity she had to work in the United States with Orion Health, and what that taught her about ambition, perspective, and grit, her passion for Ironman training and how that endurance mindset shows up in her leadership, and her experience building strong teams, mentoring others, and stepping fully into her role as a leader and culture shaper. Welcome to the podcast, Anna. How are you?
Kia ora, David. Thank you. I'm well, thank you.
Good. I know we've been trying to get you on for a while, so glad to finally have you here. I'm really excited to having a chat with you today. So look, we normally go back to the start and understand what someone's backstory is. So could you give us a bit of insight into how you got into your career and why it was this pathway to technology?
Yes. Well, I think a lot of people probably falsely assume that a lot of people who get into tech, especially into coding or software engineering, have a long history with computers and coding. When I was at high school, I didn't really use computers at all. I'd never been into gaming. I'd never done any coding. But I was good at maths and physics. And so I decided at university I'd go and do a Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Commerce, and I was going to major in physics. I actually at one time thought I might be an industrial mathematician. Anyway, it was the very first compulsory paper in science, Comp Sci 101, where I was first introduced to coding. And I do remember being in the huge lecture theatre with 200 or 300 people and all these guys around me saying, I've programmed in C++ and I programmed in COBOL. And I actually didn't know what a programming language was at that time, not that I'd admit it. But it was that first paper that got me hooked. I just loved it. Wow. And it ticked the box for me. So I changed my major and changed it into computer science and information systems. I then did an honours year. Now, this was 23 years ago, not trying to tell my age, but I did an honours year in artificial intelligence. Wow. Yeah, in AI. And we programmed robots to play soccer, and we went over and competed in FIRA in Seoul, Korea. FIRA is the International Robotic Soccer Association. We competed in that in 2002. So that was traditional machine learning, not the Gen AI we're talking about now. But it's been around for a long time. I then once I graduated, I started as I think we were then called computer programmers at Orion Health. And I was there for a very long time, moving through a number of roles. Do you want me to keep going with my...
No, that's good. That gives us a bit of an intro. So I'll maybe stop there and sort of dig into some of that stuff. Look, it's funny as you mentioned that AI. Look, it's a buzzword at the moment, but it obviously has been around for a long time. And yeah, it's interesting to hear that you were involved. How good was your robots at playing football? I'm interested in that because
Yeah. Well, there were two different divisions. So there were the ones where the code ran locally on the robot, and then there were the ones where the cameras were up high looking at the whole field, and the code essentially told each robot what to do. Ours were the
yeah,
local ones, and they looked pretty dumb, honestly. I think our software was really good. What it would do, there was
yeah,
a tiny camera on the front of the robot, which would take a number of photos per second. And each photo, our software would analyze whether there was something of interest in the photo. So whether there was a
yeah,
ball, or whether there was a goal, or which way you were facing. And that sounds easier than it actually is, because you can imagine if a ball's right up close to your eye, it looks very different than if it's
yeah.
a meter away. So our software was pretty smart, I thought, but they didn't look very smart. So when you watched, the robot would go, do little turns, and then maybe move a centimeter forward, and then maybe turn to the left, or keep turning around. So they didn't look super smart, but I think our software was good. Whereas the other ones that were running sort of remotely, they could do passing plays and all sorts of things, and they moved around much faster.
So were they very long games then?
Yes, and they were not high-scoring games. But I am proud to say we did come second behind China, but we did beat Australia. So that's
the most important thing, isn't it? Of course. So as you said, so it was one sort of paper that sort of changed everything for you in terms of why you got into technology. Now, looking back 23 years ago and where you saw technology, where it was at, because look, when I started in school, computer science, I'm 42, I'll give my age away, but I remember at school, like nobody was really sort of pushing that as a career or pushing it too much in terms, I did none of that at school, like in terms of like coding or anything like that. Did you see, like in New Zealand, was there a bit of a push towards that? And did you see this is where I can really have a really sort of like substantial and a career that's going to go on, you know?
Yeah. There were even at that time, there were some well-known Kiwi software companies. At that time, we didn't have smartphones, right? We were still on our Alcatel One Touch, send a text message and try to limit your characters as much as possible. So app development wasn't a thing. So we hadn't had that big transformation yet. However, there was some big software companies. The ones I remember at the time, Orion Health was really big. They came in and did recruitment at university. Jade Software was another big one.
Yeah.
There were a few big companies. And so at that time, when I finished uni, my whole plan was to work for a couple of years, go over to the States, create an app that was going to sell, go to Silicon Valley was what it was. I was going to create an app, I was going to sell it and make big bucks, and I was going to buy a home and come back to New Zealand and, well, maybe retire. Oh no, I was going to have kids and then essentially retire and look after my kids. It didn't quite happen like that, but I definitely saw a career in it. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So that's the thing. You mentioned Orion Health. So was that your first job out of university in terms of technology? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I had a couple of jobs in between when I graduated. It was right at the time of America's Cup, and I did a job for one of the corporate sponsors of Alingi, where I was sort of tour guiding their VIP clients around Auckland. And so that was amazing. Wow. That was a 3-month in between graduating and starting at Orion Health. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So what was it so Orion Health, obviously, like you look at it now, it's been quite a big success story. Back then, what was it attracted you to Orion Health, and what was the first role that you started in?
Yeah. What was it that attracted me? I actually had a scholarship in my honours year. Orion Health paid for part of my tuition fees, and I did my postgrad sort of dissertation or project in conjunction with Orion Health, where I wrote a case-based reasoner for diabetes management. So it was, artificial intelligence. So a sort of a formal strategy or algorithm in artificial intelligence, where you're looking at lots of different cases of people with diabetes and how they were managed, and then their success. And then you look at a new case and see what the treatment plan might be from there. So that I had a couple of connections already with Orion Health. Orion Health at that time, and I think still is, a big recruiter of graduates. They had a great graduate program. They came into university, and I think actually they gave away Milky Ways, because Orion Health is sort of a star. A lot of the products are sort of space or star related, and they were giving away Milky Ways. I do remember that. That was a long time ago. That'll get you in. give a university student some chocolate.
I know.
So a combo of things, and it was a great Kiwi success story. And then there's the other side of it too, where it's doing good, right? In the healthcare industry, it's a bit of that social side. It's not working for a big sugary drink company that's feeding a lot of sugar to that sort of thing.
And was it working on a specific product when you first came in as a programmer, or what way did it look?
Yeah, I was in a team working on a sort of back-end integration piece of software. And actually when I first came in, they gave me a sort of solo project to rewrite a piece of software using Java Swing, if anyone is on here and remembers that framework. So I did that. I don't know that anything ever came of that, but maybe it was a little bit of a test into my my software, or my programming prowess at the time. Then I was doing what I think a lot of junior software engineers were doing at the time. I was solving a lot of support and bug issues, so having to navigate the code, and then doing a few new features as well.
And how was it in terms of was it coming into that first corporate experience and working for a company which was sort of tech first? What was the experience? Was it what you expected, or was it completely different to what you expected? And how did you find your feet?
I think coming out of uni, I didn't know what to expect. The people were all good. There were a lot of new grads, and so I think there was a lot of support. It wasn't too hard to sort of find your feet. I think the expectations were set well of what you needed to do. So I don't know that I had any expectations, so I don't think it was I don't think I can compare as to whether it was what I thought it would be. One of the big attractions, I didn't say this before, one of the big attractions of going to Orion Health is because they were global, or are global. So the opportunity to potentially travel, I had not done an OE, an overseas experience, which is a big thing for young Kiwi. Given we're a little country at the bottom of the world, everyone wants to go and spread their wings and travel the world. And I thought this was a good chance to do it with a company, have a job and go and move overseas. So that was a big draw card for me. So that was always a goal right from when I started with Orion Health. Yeah.
Was there a certain amount of time that you would have to work for the New Zealand business before those opportunities started to arise?
Yes, well, and a lot of that was driven by the visa requirements. So, pretty much, I was given the option. I think the expectations were set from the start that typically about 2 years is the time that you put in, and then that also helps to qualify for the visa, particularly for the US. So, US was an H-1B visa where you can. If you've worked there for 2 years, you have accumulated enough specialty experience to be able to qualify you for the H-1B visa and do an internal company transfer. So 2 years was the sort of default time to then be offered to go overseas.
So that was all part of your cunning plan to go to America, then build your app, was it?
Well, actually, I don't know. It was US or the UK. Those are typical routes for many Kiwi. I did choose the US. I was given the option of both because we were growing both offices in both countries at the time. I chose the US because I could. I chose the east coast of the US in Baltimore because it is close to be able to travel around Europe from there too.
Oh, wow, okay. And that's the thing. So at that stage, where had you got to in terms of your career before you had moved to the States?
I actually only stayed as a computer programmer for about 9 months, and then I moved into the professional services side where I was still doing coding, but I was out our software Orion Health was for mainly in hospitals, so in New Zealand around a lot of the DHB. So I was going out and visiting these hospitals, finding out what systems, well, at this time I wasn't finding out, I was just doing the work, very much an individual contributor, but I was going out and implementing the solutions out there, sometimes doing some interface software development at that time. So I was an implementation consultant at the time when I traveled overseas, which was part of the professional services group.
Okay. And look, obviously the USA is a much bigger beast than what New Zealand is. Was it something? It's one of those things. Like, 'cause I'm from a small town in Northern Ireland, and I traveled around Europe and stuff. But then I went off traveling by myself, and I went to Australia, which I thought was massive at the time, and it was a big thing. And it was like, wow, sort of deer in the headlights, stuff like that. It was more traveling than a working trip. But when you went to the USA, that's like probably 10 times bigger than what that is. How did you find it when you first went there?
Yeah, well, because I went over and joined the office where there were already some Kiwi employees there who had travelled over, I think I had that support system. However, having said that, I landed on Boxing Day in Baltimore at about midnight, and my bags didn't arrive. And it was winter, of course, middle of winter in Baltimore. I had never watched The Wire, which was probably a good thing, which apparently is based in Baltimore, because the next day I went for a jog by myself just around Baltimore as a 25-year-old naive Kiwi girl. Yeah, maybe I won't go too much into some of those stories because people will be shocked, but I was picked up by an undercover cop who gave me a ride home, and then he told me you probably shouldn't get in the car with anyone who says they're an undercover cop. So yeah, I was definitely, I think, a naive Kiwi who didn't consider maybe some of the consequences of it being a much bigger country and what could happen. But I loved it. I got the chance to travel all over the States. I was implementing health information exchange solutions, and I moved through a number of careers while I was over there. I moved more into architecture, into technical leadership, and the States was great. I actually only stayed on the East Coast for a few months and then moved to California, and had a fabulous lifestyle there, as well as working very hard.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It sounds like when you mentioned Baltimore first, like, because I've got visions of my head. Baltimore's supposed to be a very high crime type town, and just a lot of violence and stuff like that. But then you mentioned California, and I think of the sunshine and the beaches and the surf life and all that sort of stuff. So that was the reality for you when you went to the West Coast, yeah?
100%. Yes. I got heavily into triathlon. I had grown up with my dad racing a lot of triathlons. I got growing up with supporting him, and I'd done a little bit in New Zealand before I went over there. But I got very into it with LA Tri Club, Los Angeles Tri Club. So that was a lifestyle. I'd wake up early in the morning and I'd ride my beach cruiser down to the beach, and I'd meet 100 of my friends and swim out in the ocean with the dolphins for an hour, and then come back and shower on the beach, go and have an acai bowl at one of those fancy California, Venice Beach cafes, and then pop into work, go and work for a few hours, go across the road and do a spin class at lunchtime, and then come back and work for the rest of the day. And then, maybe we'd go for a long bike ride in the evening. It was very much a lifestyle. And our office was right on 3rd Street Promenade. So it was a fabulous life.
That's amazing. And it sounds like a very healthy lifestyle. Like, what about the party scene in California? Was that pretty healthy as well?
Yeah. There were actually quite a few races in the likes of Las Vegas and Santa Barbara. So it would be on a race weekend we'd go, but we'd have a good time as well. Yeah. I remember a few I also raced cyclocross racing and cycling criterium racing, which is sort of in a big pack racing around a circuit, not inside, around an outdoor circuit.
Yeah.
And so I do remember some of those races where I'd been out, partying the night before and maybe a little worse for wear, but when I was young and could bounce back quickly, get away with it. Yeah. So we definitely, it was a burn the candle at both ends type of lifestyle.
That type of training, obviously, you have to be very well. Sounds like you were very dedicated to the type of training that you were doing. Did you find it went hand in hand with where you were in your career, and did it help you with your career as well?
Yeah. I do recall 1 month when we had a big project. I was running a big project. We had go live, and I actually worked a 400-hour month. So I worked 400-hour weeks in a row, and we had a race. I was in a team, and we had a team time trial. And normally I was sort of the team lead and pulling my weight a lot up the front. I got dropped really quickly in that race, and I just had nothing in the tank. I kind of felt invincible when I was 25. I was Ironman training. I was working really hard. But then I think that was a bit of an eye opener for me, that you can't keep going, right? It is a marathon, not a sprint. You've got to be a little bit. You've got to have some balance, and you've got to look after yourself. You can't just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, you got to manage yourself in the right way. So did that just sort of make you take a bit of a step back from like the
Yeah, I think it just made me realize you need the sleep, and you need sleep to keep going, whether that's keeping going at work or whether that's keeping going in a race. It just. I'd probably say I didn't learn the lesson immediately.
Yeah.
But,
reflecting, you do it multiple times for you to learn the lesson, doesn't it?
Yeah. Reflecting on it. I think the other big thing is commitment and dedication. As you were saying, you've got to be really committed and dedicated. And I think that was just my whole psyche. And so the same flowed right through my life, whether that was work or meeting up with friends or training or racing. Your word and your dedication, your commitment, you show up. So reliability was a really big, strong value that came through in both.
So while you were in the States as well, that sort of leaning towards leadership, was that a natural sort of move towards leadership? Was it something that came natural to you, or was it something that you were working towards?
I think my whole career, I was at Orion Health for 17 years. I don't think I ever really had any goals or anything that I was working towards. Not in the same sense as I feel we do nowadays, where people have a whole career path they're working towards. Mine was probably get overseas, move into the professional services side of things. But then a lot of the rest just happened quite organically. I think leadership came quite naturally with my sort of natural skills or developed skills in communication and in relationship building, and a lot of those things you need in leadership. And then by nature of being in a company for a while and amassing a lot of knowledge and expertise and being able to help other people with that, and sort of coach and impart the knowledge, that naturally led into leadership as well.
And did you get that? Did you enjoy the satisfaction of helping to see other people progress in their career and that sort of stuff? Is that something that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the bonuses of leadership. Whether your team is delivering a great feature or whether an individual is growing themselves or growing a new skill or getting a promotion, that's I think one of the real joys. That sounds a bit corny, but real joys of leadership.
It's true. No, it's good to hear that. So obviously you spent a bit of time in the States. So what brought you back to New Zealand?
I think I always had in the back of my mind that I would come home. My whole family is back here. I kind of said it would probably be one of my best friends or one of my family having a child that might bring me back. And it was just the sort of right time in my life over there that to take that break and come back. It wasn't an easy decision. I had a great lifestyle. I actually had a green card application and process. But the company made it really easy for me. They said, why don't you just treat it as a trial? Treat it as a trial for a year. We'll put the green card application on ice. You can just continue with, I also wanted to continue working with my US clients rather than coming back into New Zealand, working with New Zealand clients. So we had what we called a global resource team. A lot of our work was overseas. So we were running a team of implementation consultants from New Zealand doing the work overseas. So I slotted in there. I was actually an architect by that stage. I was doing more solution architecture. So that just made the decision a bit easier. And once I was home,
That was it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I did do a few more trips back for work. So that I got a little bit of the best of both worlds, which was nice for me.
Yeah, and then moving into those sort of more sort of like the pathway then to moving into your more sort of like pure management roles and head of roles where you are now. How did that come to fruition once you were back in New Zealand?
Well, I had done team leadership at various times throughout my career at Orion Health. Another really big decision, of course, was leaving Orion Health after 17 years. I had, 1 year of that was maternity leave when I left and had my daughter, and then I came back, and then I was still in architecture and team leadership. And I work often when people come back from parental leave, they come back, or I came back 3 days a week and then worked up to 4 days and then up to 5 days. And it was really nice to be able to come back to an environment that was comfortable. I was confident in my skills in that environment. I was able to slot back in and add value immediately, which is really good when you've come back from, your life essentially being turned upside down and becoming a parent, as you would know. So I got to that point that I thought, okay, now is the time for me to focus on my career. And what am I going to do next? And I looked at actually a number of options, both within Orion and outside. I went for 3 completely different types of job outside of Orion. And that wasn't an easy decision either. The jobs I went for were an architect job, a technical product owner job, and a management job. So quite different.
Yeah. Different avenues.
Yeah, different roles. And I honestly wasn't sure which one. And it was a couple of people around me, mainly my husband, who encouraged me to recognize some of the skills that I had in management and in leading people, which I hadn't really valued, I don't think, being a technical person and following the rules. And I know I've been taught in coding, and I know how to do that, and I know how to implement software. And software is straightforward and deterministic, not now with AI, but it was at the time, and you can test it and it's right and wrong, whereas management and people is not. And so it took me a little bit to get my head around that. And so I ended up going with a software development manager role at heading up the software development at Air New Zealand. And I loved it. Yeah. It was a bit uncertain going into a completely different role. I led
different industry as well.
Yes, different industry.
Yeah, but I suppose an iconic brand, and I think obviously at that stage when they were probably rated as the number one of the best airlines in the world at that stage, weren't they?
Yes, and there were, I talk about the tech roundabout in Auckland because there were a lot of people there who had been at Orion. So I had contacts and people that I knew there. And I think anyone who's been in the industry for 20 plus years, as I have, will know lots of people in the sort of same companies around Auckland. So having that connection there helped too, all those connections. Yeah.
And was like when you went into the roles, obviously it sounds like it was a great time for you, but did you have that sort of thing that I know you've had team lead roles, but having that pure leadership role in. Did you have that sort of feeling when you first went in? Was there that sort of imposter syndrome
Oh,
of,
yeah.
can I do this or anything? Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yes. Yes. Where's the rule book for this? It's like becoming a parent. Where's the rule book for
I know. I
what do you
know.
do with this tiny little baby? It's the same thing with a team, right? Where's the rule book for dealing with people who, I mean, it can go right from really, really ambitious and how do I grow them and help them to, have no idea what they want to do, or to conflict issues within teams. All of those things are different every time, and just learning how to navigate them. Yes, plenty of imposter syndrome. I don't know how to do everything. I'm not the expert in everything. And then same with the technical. I was leading people who were app developers right through to sort of we had assembler code, or very, very old mainframe systems at Air New Zealand. And I don't, I've never coded in a lot of those, right? I'd never written app code either. So also leading people where you're not the expert in what they are the expert in is a source of imposter syndrome.
Yeah. And so you learned a lot about yourself over those first few years there, yeah?
Yes. Yes, well, I mean, and actually that was accelerated because I joined an airline 6 months before COVID hit. So, moving to completely remote, right up until then, you really didn't work from home at that, at that time. So moving to completely remote, and then as an airline, we were having to downsize. So then going through restructure conversations and having pretty difficult conversations with people over video, and then how do we change our strategy, what are the big projects. At that time we Air New Zealand was offering credits or giving people credits for their cancelled flights, but we had no way to redeem those credits online. So my team was building a big credit redemption solution, which was a big project. Actually having some pretty ambitious goals and some work that was really important while we were all navigating this new COVID situation and lockdowns and working from home. That was a time that I think really accelerated my career as a manager or as a leader, because I think as a leader, a lot of the things that you need experience in, you don't always get the opportunity to. You don't always get the opportunity to manage a difficult person or someone who's dealing with a lot of personal health issues or having to have restructure conversations, right? And you don't want those opportunities, and you're never going to create them. But you also don't learn and have the experience in them unless they happen. And COVID was a time that just triggered a whole lot of those experiences, or I'm sure for many people, but particularly for me.
Yeah, it was a bit of a perfect storm, and it's giving you all the good, the bad, and the ugly, and really sort of setting you up then.
Yeah.
And then you've sort of like stayed with that sort of iconic New Zealand business in terms of the type of profile of business. So obviously you spent quite a few years now at TradeMe. I was going to say, what attracted you? I'm sure like it's pretty obvious what attracted you to a business like that, but what was it for you that really got you going for that role? And yeah, what's been the challenges and the exciting phases through that as well?
Yeah, well, it was probably another iconic Kiwi brand was an attraction. There were two other attractions. One was the CTO at TradeMe. Paolo had worked at Air New Zealand, and I didn't work for him, but I worked I had worked closely with him and thought that he was a person that I would follow, essentially. So that was a key attraction. And then probably the biggest one was the role itself. So my role as head of engineering, I sit on the senior leadership team. I'm involved in and exposed to a lot wider functions and a lot wider decision making. So the strategy of the business, I get involved in the commercial side and the sales side and the marketing side, where when you're a tech leader in big companies, those decisions are all made, and then are made very, it's not isolated, but you're not involved, often not involved.
Yeah, it is siloed. It is siloed, isn't it, under those areas?
Yeah, more siloed, or those decisions are made and then it's over to tech or digital to deliver on it.
Yes.
So you're very much at the end of the chain in a way. Whereas in this role, I'm shifted left in tech terminology, and I'm involved a lot earlier in a lot of those decisions. And so as far as my skill set and experience and exposure has gone, it's much wider.
Yeah.
And I've really, really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed the commercial side of it. Although as a tech leader, you often manage a budget, you are pretty much always a cost center. And so it is a little bit narrow when it comes to experience and in the commercial side of things. So this role has met my expectations of one of the things that attracted me to it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Is it in terms of the size of the actual team that you were looking after? Is it a much bigger team, or like was it a similar size team?
It was similar. So at Air New Zealand, it was up to 90 software engineers, both contract and permanent. And then it was similar at the time that I joined. TradeMe. At the time, I was the head of head of engineering for classifieds, which was property, jobs, and motors. So we had about 9 to 11 squads. But it was leading both software engineers, testers, managers, and delivery leads as well, principal software engineers too, and lead software engineers. Yeah, so a little bit wider as far as the functions within the team as well that reported to me. Yeah.
And that's the thing in terms of, because obviously when you went in there and to where it is now, and obviously I know your role's changed a little bit, has changed since you've been in there, but is there fundamentals that you think needs to be right to have a really, really successful engineering team or squads teams? Is there some fundamentals or some principles that you think, right, these are absolute must-haves for me to get this team going the way I need them to go? And how is it easy to implement, or does it? Just a bit of insight into how you operate, really.
Yeah, I'd love to say it's easy to implement. Nothing. It will sound easy when I talk about it, I'm sure. I think a big one is getting the right people, getting the right skill sets for what you need, and getting the people with the right attitude. And not that it's right or wrong, but the attitude and the culture that fits with what the business needs. So the culture of TradeMe is a very Kiwi culture. It is distinctive, and it's different from, I would imagine, a culture at maybe a big bank or an insurance company, based on the size of the company and the type of things that we're doing. So the right people is, I think, a big one. Then I feel like this is sort of management or business 101, but having the clear goal and the purpose. Everyone knows what direction they're driving in, and particularly with something that can feel quite high and airy fairy, like strategy and visions and goals for the business, being able to pull that thread through to what a particular engineer or a squad is working on that contributes towards those goals. Whether it's a squad that's developing new features, or whether it's a squad that's supporting a product, or whether it's the customer service team helping customers, all of that should pull through to the vision and the strategy of the company. So I think those are two of the biggest things, honestly. I would say as a leader, communication, right? If you don't tell people, if you don't pass on messages or direction, then people will make things up and people won't know what they're doing. But then on the flip side, listening too, you can't just always be talking. So communication both ways, making sure that you're hearing people, and often the people the individual contributors who are doing the work will have great ideas and actually have a really good insight into what might help both the customer and the business.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was speaking to a leader recently, and I've seen some research on it as well, is that in terms of feedback from both sides, like we've come through this stage where feedback was always something that people were a bit afraid of. There's going to be feedback on something, it might be negative, but like structure and feedback and communicating that in the right way, both sides, leads to a lot more innovation, a lot more people feeling accountability. And it's sort of like what you're alluding to. And it's amazing how many businesses don't do that properly. So it's good in terms of a leadership, how you approach it. It's really good and refreshing to hear that that's the way that you like. Cause I know it sounds simple, but it's not always done. It's not always done in the right way from some of the conversations I've had and some of the experiences I've seen.
Yeah. And I think you can get really, you can get very operational, particularly if I think of the likes of one-on-ones, right, where your manager and your employee is having a catch-up. It can get really sort of like a progress update, and can that's a comfortable zone. It's very easy to sit in that zone and not give feedback or ask for feedback either way, particularly constructive feedback, right? That's hard. That's one of those more difficult conversations because you can overanalyze how people are going to react to it. But getting just doing it and becoming comfortable with giving and receiving feedback, I think is a skill. Excuse me. It's a skill, and it takes time.
Yeah. So look, obviously trade meet's probably a good indication of seeing like how the economy's going and how things are going in terms of like, is it like in terms of where the business is going and how things have been. Obviously it's been a tough time for it, but have you seen any positive signs in terms of traffic through the site and stuff like that? Is there any trends at this stage that's worth sharing?
Yeah, well, Trade Me is actually sort of 4 businesses in one. We have property, motors, jobs, and marketplace, and each business responds differently to changes in the environment, and each business bounces back at different times. So you can see green shoots, or you can get some indication of what's happening from whether there are more job adverts coming out, or whether more candidates are applying, or whether there are more houses going up for sale, or the time to sell of houses is reducing. There is plenty of data around that. I'm no economist, and I think it's been so up and down, right? You know, our data tells us things, but sometimes you don't. That could be competitors' movements in the market, or it could be the market as a whole. Sorry, no super insights there. I just hope that it's going to.
Okay. I thought I would try and get in it. It's funny. It's funny. Like and this is the thing. I think it's just it's been so up and down. 2025 was supposed to be the great return to like the boom times, but it never happened. 2026, there's probably a few green shoots, but who knows? It could be 2027 before we're back to the sort of normality or boom time that we're looking for. But look, it's but it sounds like in terms of your career and your progression, it sounds like it's like you've worked for some really, really good business, and it seems like it's progressed and evolved quite naturally, leading to where you are at the moment. It must sort of give you satisfaction around that sort of chain of events to take you through those businesses, yeah?
Yeah. It's certainly not what I planned at the beginning, where I was going to make that amazing app and sell it for so much money. But I feel very lucky and blessed. Excuse me, my dog is going crazy in the background. I feel really lucky and blessed with the career that I've had and the people that I've met along the way, and where I've ended up at the moment, and who knows where to from here.
Awesome. All right. Well, look, Anna, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That was really, really insightful, and it was great to hear about your story and how your career's progressed. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast. To our listeners and our viewers as well, if you continue to like the content, please give us a like, share our content wherever you can, and we'll see you for the next podcast. Thanks very much. Cheers, Anna.
Great. Thanks, David.